Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. If you don't know me, I've been rank 1 in Wild Rift all solo queue. I've been a 5-role sovereign on 5 different accounts all solo queue. And today I'm going to be talking about Vision. So basically the gist of Vision is going to be talking about the purpose of wards, the difference between a ward, a sweeper, a control ward, and just giving you guys all of the basics you need to know. It's not going to go in depth telling you every small detail you need to know about Vision. What you are going to learn from this video is everything you would need to know if you're good enough at the rest of the game to get sovereign with Vision. So when you should be warding, where you should be warding at different points in the game, where you should be warding when you're ahead or behind, where you should be warding when you have push in lane or when you're getting pushed back. That's going to be what you're going to see in this video. That's going to be the information you're going to get. And again, that's going to be a majority of the information that you're going to need for warding. There's going to be more detail if you're like, really, really good player, really trying to get into the details of it. But for now, I feel like this is more valuable. So that's why we're going to be doing just this level of information on warding and Vision. Additionally, I have a Google Doc link in the description below to the Google Doc, which gives you information on all of the key concepts you need to understand in Wild Rift and videos associated with them. And then lastly, link in the description also gives information on my coaching if you're interested in that. Anyways, let's get right into the video. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright guys, so starting off, we're going to talk about where and when to ward, and I'm just going to do this in Practice Tool. I couldn't find the real Practice Tool. I don't know if they changed the UI. If anyone knows in the comments, feel free to let me know. Regardless of that, basically on the side lanes, there's 3 main places to ward, and then we're going to talk about times to ward after. So the best possible ward you can get is a ward right here on the Krugs. The reason for this being the best ward is because you find jungle pathing. So if jungle's camp is already killed, like say you ward at 40 or 50 seconds and this camp's killed, you know the enemy jungler is pathing towards their blue side. Or if this camp is still alive, you know the jungler is coming towards you. So that is by far the most effective ward. The second most effective ward is going to be any type of a river ward. So basically anywhere around where I'm standing, you can ward this bush right here, you can ward that bush, but generally more like a river ward is going to be the second best ward you can really do, like get it out in the river, like over here really. And then the third ward could just be, again, just like this bush right here. Every once in a while you could ward the bush you currently see right here. This would only really be if you're expecting them to come from behind and dive you, if there's like a Lee Sin who might kick you and you think he's going there, but that's going to be pretty rare. So now, when do we ward those different areas? Well, the first thing is you don't want to ward level 1 almost ever, because the enemy jungler could come from anywhere. You could get 1v2'd or anything like that. So unless your like team is coming and you're looking for an invade or something, you're not really going to go for a level 1 ward. The time where you're going to go for a ward is after you've already killed the wave. So say I'm playing lane here, I've killed this wave, say hypothetically I pushed it all the way, then because the wave is pushed under the turret and the enemy is stuck dealing with the turret, now I have the ability to ward. And so when you have the ability to ward and you crash a wave like that, you want to ward a jungle camp. If you're in a situation where you can't necessarily get as deep of a ward, because maybe it's more of an even lane and you just never have time to leave because he's winning lane, that's when you're going to ward here or ward in the river if possible, because you don't have the ability to ward as deep. And then again, on bot side, it's going to be the exact same, except instead of warding Krugs, you're going to ward the blue buff. You get the same information. If the blue buff is killed, you know the enemy is going other side. If the blue buff's not killed, you know the enemy will come here soon. Again, you ward river if you can't really ward anything better. And then if you're really getting pushed back, you can ward this bush right here, because this bush is definitely a place someone could gank from. It's kind of pretty effective compared to warding here, where you don't really get anything warding here. If you do ward here when you're on the bot side, it's good really, again, only if you're getting pushed back. So again, to reiterate, on the side lane, ideally you ward a jungle camp, which you're going to do after you push a wave under the enemy turret, not before. If you can't get the wave under the enemy turret or they're pressuring you, then you're going to ward river if possible. And if river's not possible, then you'll either ward this bush right here, or if you're on the other side of the map, you'll ward that bush right there. Okay, next up we have mid lane warding. So again, level 1, you're typically not going to want to ward, but there is a situation where you can ward, and that's going to be when you have way stronger level 1 than the enemy mid laner, and the jungler is not a super scary level 1 champion. So say the enemy mid is a Veigar and I'm a Jace, and the enemy jungler is a Shyvana, who's not really that scary level 1, well then as soon as you're running out of spawn right away, immediately run to where you see me going here, and then instantly ward this jungle camp. That way you're going to immediately be able to find the enemy jungle pathing, and if the enemy Veigar tries to contest you, you just go on him. So basically, you can right away level 1 run and ward this if you have really strong level 1 and you don't have any fear of dying level 1. Now, very commonly, that's not going to be the case, where you don't just have way stronger level 1. In that case, you're going to play to push the first wave, and then after first wave is pushed, then you ward this camp. You can do the same to blue buff if you really want, but it's a little easier to ward the that camp, I forget what they're called, chickens or whatever, compared to warding blue buff. So I would recommend typically warding this, but you can ward blue. It's a pretty similar effect overall. So that's, again, either level 1 you're really strong, you ward the jungle camp, or level 2 after you push, you ward the jungle camp. But what if we're not pushing? Well, if we're not pushing, we have a couple options again. So typically, I'm just going to say you're going to ward one of these side bushes. The only problem is this doesn't give you the most information. All this does is stop someone from immediately diving you, or like ganking you if you walk towards this bush. So this is really only going to be a useful ward for champions who are very, very lane centric and don't really need to leave the lane. So if I'm like a Syndra, my goal as Syndra is just to stay in the lane and poke the enemy. All I'm worried about is getting ganked here. I'm going to make sure I position in a way where the enemy can't gank me over the wall there. You know, I'll be safe enough with flash, and basically if I'm safe and I don't really want to walk into river because, you know, I don't know where the enemy are, it's a bit scary, I'll ward this bush. It's kind of like, it's a fine ward, it doesn't do anything special. You know, you can ward the top side bush too. It's just one of these two bushes here in the lane. But then a better ward is going to be the ward right here. And the reason this is going to be a better ward is because it's going to give you more information. Say that I'm a jungler and I know that people usually ward that bush. Well, then I can walk here and I can basically come around here, or I could come from, you know, I could, like, if I have an ability that goes over the wall, like say I'm here right now, I have ability that goes over the wall, I use my ability to go over the wall, and then I gank you from here and you can't see it. So if you have a ward deeper in the river like here, then usually someone walking and doing that will get spotted, whereas they won't get spotted if your ward is again in this bush. So basically, similar to how top side or bot side, it's best to ward a camp, second best to ward river, and third best to ward the safe bush, it's kind of the same here. If you have push and you have all of the luxury in the world, you ward a camp. If you have a little bit of push, or it's fine, but you don't have as much time, you just go and ward the river here, like in this bush or in that bush there. But if you just need a little bit of vision, you don't really have anything better to ward, and you're kind of getting pushed back, then you're just going to ward right there in one of the two bushes. So that's pretty much the gist of early game warding, at least at the very start of the game. Again, just basically there's the three ward types. There's the really safe ward, there's the, you know, river ward, and then there's ideally the jungle ward. We talked about the basics of lane warding, so now I'm going to talk about the basics of early game jungle warding. So the first thing you always want to do as a jungler is control ward the opposite side of where you're starting. So if you decide to start on your red side, then you're going to immediately out of base go and control ward right here, where you see here, and simply recall and then grab sweeper, and then immediately go to your red side. Now if you start on the blue side and you initially go to ward your red side, you're going to ward one of two places. You're going to ward this bush where my cursor is right now, or you're going to ward this bush where my cursor is right now. The benefits of this bush here is that you can see people invading your raptors, but the benefit of this bush is, of course, if someone's invading your red right away. It's really up to you. I typically prefer this ward because oftentimes this one right here will bait the enemy into going on to your teammate, or like going to kill your ward, and then oftentimes they go and your mid laner can create an all-in opportunity, or it gives you vision of them, and it's just overall very useful compared to this one, which is safer but doesn't die as much. But I don't really care if a ward dies, because at the end of the day it gives me the information just from it being hit. So basically, again, the gist of it is go control ward opposite side of your jungle that you're going to start on, then recall, grab sweeper, and then go to the side you're going to start on, do your clear, and then we're going to talk about sweeper usage here. So typically the most common time as a jungler to use your sweeper is going to be after you do your full clear, when you're going into the river for the first time. So here, typically you're going to ward after looking for a gank, or like when you're looking for a gank. So for example, in this situation here, you see that Veigar already rotated topside, and so I know Veigar is going to come back. So in this case, I sweep right around this area to see if I've been spotted. This way I know if I've been spotted or not, so I know if he's going to be scared of me, because he hasn't spotted me. I end up just hovering over this wall, and I know he's going to come right here. And if you guys don't know, the sweeper actually reveals the silhouette of anything within the area. So if we look here, I want to show you guys, you can see right now the silhouette of Veigar is revealed, and so I utilize that to find him. So basically the gist of this sweeper usage is sweep the river in a place where you're looking for a gank. So if I was looking for top side, I would do the same sweep, but I would walk towards the top side, go into that bush. Again, the bush where we spoke about common words, which is again like the one right up here in the river, like we'll ward up there, or we'll sweep up there. And then basically because of that, again, sweeper usage here, we're able to kill this Veigar. So you can see how sweeper usage often allows you to get ganks off and allows you to get, the jump on the enemy because you know if they can or cannot see you. So now we're going to talk about the difference between sweeper, control ward, and regular yellow ward. So the yellow ward, simply you place it, you can get up to 2 of them in your inventory at a time. And if you place it down, after a couple seconds, the enemy can no longer see it and it gives vision in an area. The control ward also gives vision in an area, but additionally it reveals invisible champions and invisible things like Teemo mushrooms, for example. However, the enemy can see it, so it's easier for the enemy to kill. And then the sweeper, it obviously sweeps in the area and removes vision, like it disables vision for that time. And then obviously you can kill it because you can see it, so you can see like a yellow ward that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. And again, it shows the silhouettes. So I'm going to talk about when you want each. So most of the time, every laner is going to want yellow ward. The jungler again is going to want the control, or is going to want the sweeper rather. Now, sometimes you can take control ward as a laner instead. So that's going to be when the enemy have invisible champions like Evelynn, that type of thing, right? When they have a Teemo, so you can reveal his mushrooms and his invisibility. Those types of times, you can have 1 or 2 people take control ward. And then the only other time you can take control ward is in duo lane. 1 of the 2 people can take control ward. So a support often can be the one to take it. The time you're going to want to take control ward is only going to be when you have a very, very winning lane matchup. When you have a very winning lane matchup, you can use control ward to reveal vision in the bush of the enemy, and then bait them into going on you when they try to kill it. But that's really going to be the only time. It's very, very rare. And so in this type of situation, then there's one more thing I want to talk about with duo laning, and that is the early game ward mistake a lot of people make. So here you can see after we go on the enemy, they control warded this bush. You're going to see here, and very often, you'll see when you're going. So here they control warded the bush. Very, very often I'll see people make this mistake of control warding their bush level 1 or regular warding the enemy bush. So if like hypothetically I was Leona here and I walked up level 1 and I regular warded right where their control ward is, very often people make that mistake. The problem with this is it doesn't give you any value. So if the enemy, like, they don't need to know if I ward this bush. They'll come into the bush level 1, they'll already see me ward it, so there's no actual point to it. And then if they, keep that ward in there, eventually we're going to kill it. We're going to get the golden XP from it. And then if we yellow ward their bush level 1, the problem is the enemy will kill it most of the time because they'll be sitting in the bush. Then when they kill it, they're going to be able to get level 2 before you because of the additional XP you get from killing a ward. So the point of this is never ward the lane bushes early game. It's almost always useless unless you're control warding the lane bush early game to bait the enemy in because you want to all in them because you're a really strong early game like Draven or Thresh. So again, most champions take yellow ward, control ward only into invisible champions, and junglers take sweeper. That's about the gist of when you should take what. Okay, so this clip I want to show you something very brief, but is important for a jungler in general. So as you can see right now, the enemy is currently sweeping our ward, which you can see because you see the little red kind of like energy looking field thing around this ward. That means the enemy is currently sweeping it. And why this is important is because you can use it to hide the objective health. So right now the herald is up, but we can't see the health. This is a very common thing as a jungler. When you're ahead and the enemy are trying to steal a baron or something, you want to use the sweeper so they can't see the objective HP. Now you don't want to do it at like 2000 HP because the enemy know it's about to die and they can jump over the wall and steal it. But if you do it when you're hitting it, but it's at like 4000 or 5000, if it's a baron, for example, or an elder dragon, you do it early enough that the enemy have to guess with the timing rather than being able to guarantee the timing. Obviously, you can also just use it right away. Here they're just using it right away before they even start the objective. But I want to talk again about how you can use it to hide the vision of things around. So we can't see the health or hide the health of the things around the area. So we can't see the health of the objective. As a jungler, this is very effective for making smiting easier, basically. And then obviously once he auto attacks the ward, that's when he reveals himself. But until then, it basically, we knew it was being swept, but it often can be used again to hide HP of objectives. We talked about warding in the early game generally already, and so now I'm mostly going to be talking about later parts of the game, how you want to approach warding. So there's kind of 2 different things. There's going to be warding when you're ahead and warding when you're behind. So when you're ahead, typically you're going to want to ward deeper. Oftentimes that's going to mean finding jungle camps or warding choke points that the enemy have to walk into. So when you have control of the map, like we do here, and you're going to a lane, make sure you use the fact that the lane is pushed to get vision somewhere like these Krugs here. So again, use lane push to then get vision deeper in the enemy jungle, usually so that you can find enemy jungle. That's typically going to be the main purpose. Then we're going to skip forward a little bit, and you're going to see we're going to do the same thing here. We push mid, and we use mid push to get a ward on their blue. You saw I warded the blue like a second ago. So again, basically from this point, we use the fact that we push top to get a ward on top side jungle camp. Then we use the fact that we push mid to get a ward on the bottom side jungle camp. So basically just using your push and your prio to get wards in the enemy jungle. That's going to be the most typical thing you're going to want to do when there is not an objective up. Now we're going to talk about warding around objectives. So very typically you want to, again, use your push to then ward deeper in the enemy jungle. So this is going to be very effective in the mid game during an objective spawning when you're actually strong and when you have prio. Again, use your prio to ward somewhere over the wall. Here you're going to see we ward directly over the wall here. And what this does is it shows us the enemy as they walk into the choke point. Honestly, I could have warded slightly deeper. You know, it would have been a little bit better. But overall, you basically want to ward choke points that the enemy have to walk into so that you can see them as they're walking in rather than warding the objective. Like right now, warding the objective, of course, wouldn't make sense because my entire team is on it. So instead, we ward a bit deeper to get vision and stop the enemy from coming into a choke point. This ward is very specific, but also very important because it's a very common occurrence. So basically, it's very often that the Baron and the Dragon are spawning at very similar time. The second Baron and the first Dragon, they're going to spawn, or the first Baron and the second Dragon are going to spawn at a very similar time. Here you see there's a 17-second difference between the two. So if the Baron is the one that's spawning later, which it is in this case, oftentimes you want to make sure you have a ward on the Baron so the enemy don't sneak it if you do want to contest Dragon. So simply, I know my team's probably going to go contest a Dragon here, and so I just make sure that I get a little ward right here onto the Baron. Simply now, the enemy can't sneak it. We'll see them. That simple, but it's very important to understand that ward. The final thing I want to talk about is just warding when you're behind, and I'm just showing it in practice tool because it's pretty straightforward. Ultimately, when you're behind, similar to how you're getting pushed back in lane, you just have to ward whatever you can. Like, you no longer have the ability to push the lane and then go and ward a jungle camp or ward a choke point before an objective. You don't have this luxury. And so what you're going to be doing instead is just simply ward where I can. So like, let's say you don't have push, but you know the enemy, say this is a Baron, you know the enemy are going to do Baron in the next, 30 seconds. Just get a ward on Baron. Like then, okay, now I know when they're on Baron, at least we have a chance to steal. So more often you're warding to get a steal or you're warding where it's convenient. So say you're getting pushed back, the enemy have Baron and they're pushing you forward right now here. Just ward right here in this bush. Then if the enemy come there, you can maybe get a pick on someone who's trying to sneak up on you because they have additional vision. So again, defensive warding, ultimately, I'm not going to show you a bunch of examples because it's pretty much just, okay, what can I get? What are the enemy giving me? The enemy are giving me a ward on the Dragon. I'm going to ward the Dragon because I know they're going to do it soon. Or the enemy are coming, again, pushing us forward, are pushing us into our base. We need to just ward a bush that they might sneak into our camp so that we can, catch them off guard. That's really the gist of defensive warding, is wherever is convenient and gives us some amount of vision because we don't have the luxury of pushing and then controlling a choke point or warding deeper in the enemy jungle. That's going to be it for the video. As always, I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was useful for you in some way, shape, or form, and I will see you in the next video.